yourself is already within you, as above, so below.
vibes only. vibes only. God 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 vibes only.
You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You are now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Harut, and I got my good brother here, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Brother, living, learning, and applying. How about yourself, man?
Hey, man, no complaints, man. No complaints, man. Just trying to take it to the next level, man. You know what I'm saying? Like my brother over here. You know what I'm saying?
You're doing big things, brother. Big things, man.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. But before we get too far, I want to remind you all, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you can know when we're going live or whatnot. You know, on a day like this, when we hit an unconventional pattern or whatnot, you know, launching live on a day that we usually don't. So, you know, make sure you hit that notification bell so you can know that we are tuning in or whatnot. We're getting busy or whatnot. But as always, this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group. Calaprucha Astrology, and our good people over there on Patreon. Big up to y'all. Or whatnot. If you want to connect with us on Instagram or any other social media outlets, you can find us on Instagram at Cosmic Convo. That's CosmicConvo on Instagram. And from there, you can get to all the different outlets. You can get to me personally. You can get to the Push It Forward Podcast Network on there. You can also get to all of the other, different avenues I got, with Ninth Lord Films and everything like that. Brother Ra, how can the people get a hold of you?
Pretty much the same old same. You can hit me up either on Facebook or IG via Shechem Ra, or you can get at me via Gmail at calaprushastrology@gmail.com.
Indeed. So, here we are. We over here on episode 11. That's episode 111 overall. Season 5 or whatnot, getting it in, trucking through this season, knocking these episodes out or whatnot. Last week we had a pretty interesting episode, with the whole, Will, Jada, and Chris Rock situation or whatnot. We're seeing a lot of those things unfold right now. So, big ups to this science and different things like that or whatnot. What you think about that last episode, Ra?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I just have to say, yeah, it happened. Yeah, it happened.
Yeah, man. Shout outs to Will, man. You know what I mean? Because I feel like he's like a man on the island right now or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So, people make mistakes, man. So I don't, you know what I mean? Like, all the extra. I mean, I get it, big stage, Oscars and everything like that. But, these are regular people, man. They're famous, they're talented, but these are regular people, man. So, give them a break.
They're human too, definitely.
Indeed, man. So, much, positive energy, positive vibes, all that stuff like that. Prayers the whole nine to everybody involved or whatnot in that situation. But yeah, kind of speaking to that, today, we're a little late. It had some storms rolling in, man, over here in Atlanta and stuff like that on Wednesday. And I didn't feel comfortable doing the episode because shortly after the time we were going to start, power got shut off or whatnot through different storms and stuff like that. So, we took a hiatus, and then today was the day that we actually had, the time to be able to get in here and do it. So apologies for that, but, we're moving and shaking and stuff like that. So hopefully y'all forgive us. But we got a great episode planned for today. Ra, before we get into anything regarding the episode, you had anything you want to impart on the people?
No, just want to shout out to all the people that definitely came through, that are in the classes, in the course. Each one of them, we having a ball, right? We have fun learning this science. We have fun exploring the veracity of it and exploring the different levels of understanding of it. So I just want to shout out to all my students. I definitely appreciate y'all participating. And, I mean, I'm never going to completely shut it down, but we're getting to a point now where if you haven't already joined, it'll be very difficult for you to kind of jump in. But if you can double Dutch, get at me and let me know, right? We might be able to accommodate you.
Indeed, man. Shout out to them classes or whatnot, man. I'm telling you, because like we were just kind of chatting about this. I delved back into the Will and Jada situation a little bit. Is that I mean, don't sleep on astrology, man. I mean, like I listen to people. You got to realize that this is an advantage that most people don't have, right? If Will would have talked to a real competent astrologer using the correct system, he would have known what kind of he would have known what he was getting into or whatnot. He would have known he was dealing with a real live man eater. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying, and no disrespect to Jada, but I mean, there are certain people that's just wired a certain way. There's a reason why she's wired the way how she is. You know what I mean? There's a purpose behind it or whatnot. But he would have known that you're getting into the getting into spending a life with somebody that's hard body. You understand what I'm saying? You're gonna have to have your A game, man. You're gonna have to be on your A game. You know what I mean? You got to be sharp or whatnot, because she gonna test you, brother, or whatnot.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is that the bull has been able to withstand the venom of the scorpion for 20 plus years. And at some point, when that venom has registered deep enough and has settled into the neurological system of the bull is going to finally react, right? And it's just
Man,
that's
that's
what it
a
is, right?
man, drop a bomb for that, man. That was a heck of a way to explain that. You know what I mean? If y'all don't understand the correlation, is that Will is a Taurus ascendant and Jada is a Scorpio ascendant. You check out the last episode, you'll see that they're opposites of each other, 7 away from each other, or whatnot. So that yeah, that's an excellent way to put that. Whatnot, because that's exactly what it is. Unfortunately,
Yeah, a well-built bull can only withstand so much of that toxicity, right?
yeah.
The entanglement, the toxicity of entanglements, right? At some point will come back to haunt you, and I'm sure in the back of his mind, what I mean, through all of this, which his mind is being rattled to a great degree because the southern node K2 is definitely approaching that
Mm,
27th degree where his moon resides. So he's going to lose his mind for a little bit. And
mm-hmm.
yeah, sometimes you got to lose your mind to regain your mind. So, we're going to see some interesting outcomes here in the next couple of months with Will. But, I commend any brother that tries to keep his family together, that tries to keep his marriage together, that tries to keep everything under control despite everything's going haywire and chaotic behind the scenes, especially with a man eater. When we say man eater, I mean simply that her moon is in the 10th house, right, of control and dominance, right? And it's in Leo, which is the sign of, right, literally beasts that eat men. And so by far, right, she's got the eighth lord conjunct the moon, right? So that mind can be tumultuous. It can be extremely commanding and demanding. In fact, I saw a couple of videos where she was, kind of bossing him around, trying to, push his buttons. He was like, "Look, social media is my bread basket. You can't just put me on like that." So, you got your hands full, that's for sure. But
Yeah, you
hang in
got
there, Will. Things will get better once this node moves over that moon, and you can gather some mental composure. You should be able to weather the storm a little bit better.
right. Yeah, she that lion to try to eat that that bull the whole nine, man. You gotta have
Mhm.
you
Oh
gotta
yeah,
be the king of the jungle, man. Like like she gotta be your she gotta be on the hunting missions with you, brother.
oh yeah, oh
Cause
yeah.
she's a lioness for sure.
And that's why she has that pride on the red table, right? That she has that pride on the red table, and they sharpen their claws and filing their fangs. You know what I mean? So big ups to any
Indeed.
brother that can withstand that kind of pressure. I understand it.
Yeah, I know. I've done. I got a fiery one on my hands as well. Not like that, but a little fiery.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
different fire, different
different
fire.
type of fire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Indeed, indeed. Well, shoot, this stuff is jumping off for a reason, and we're gonna get into that. This episode right here. Just we I think we jumped the season off with either episode of 1 or 2, with kind of like a prediction styles type show. But right now we're right on the edge of a lot of some real key movements, some key transits that's jumping off, and I think this was a good time for us to come in and kind of explain, kind of find, hone in on some key placements that we're going to be living with for at least the last year and a year and a half, going on or whatnot. So let's go ahead and get into it.
yeah. This is probably one of the most pivotal months I've seen in astrology in years. When I say
Mm.
pivotal, meaning it's a turn point for a lot of different changes to occur in the world and in the personal scene as well, of course, because we live in the world. And you know, it's just I've never seen so many at once, back to back. Right? I've seen. Let me not say that. There was some way back in '08, but this is a little different in
Right.
that they're all in a weird way kind of helping but hurting at the same time. It's a dual edged sword here. It seems like on one side things will get better, and it will to some degree. It will change for the better, and all things serve to further. An old adage from the I Ching: everything serves to further, but how? Right, right, and that's the magical question: is how and why. Um, the first major thing that we're really going to notice, and I know some people use the mean node. Some people use the true node. I think it's a matter of personal preference when we talk about Rahu and K2 transiting in the heavens. I use both, right? I use both just to kind of measure and see what the differences are as far as the outcomes of circumstances are concerned.
Could you
Um,
could you could you jump into what's the difference between the two?
sure. And so the difference is, the mean node, mean means average, right? It's kind of the average of where the planet is at this particular time, versus the true is what we would consider the specific placement in the heavens. And the true node is still an average, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a difference of about 1 degree. So that difference between the true node and the mean node really kind of puts a spin on when that particular Rahu and Ketu, as they are planets in the Jyotish consideration, when they will kind of move over or through or change different signs.
Right.
Um, right now, from the mean node perspective, right, Rahu and Ketu at the very cusp end of Taurus and Scorpio, right? Rahu being in Taurus, Ketu being in Scorpio. Whereas with the true node, they've already entered into or changed or ingressed into different signs, Rahu being in Aries and Ketu being in Libra. Um, I say always measure both. What I would really boil it down to is what the ancients use, which is the mean node, just because you will be able to un, unequivocally identify those changes. Whereas with the true node, there is kind of a cusp factor where it's moving, and you have kind of a gray area or kind of an ambiguity of the occurrences that take place. When you see K2 move into Libra, Rahu move into Aries, it's unmistakable in the sense of the mean node, where you can't argue the effects, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, like, I haven't. I mean, I feel things, moving a little bit, but I haven't. It hadn't. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't feel like it a shift like quite like that yet.
mhm. You will,
You understand what I'm saying? I,
right?
I mean, like, I'm talking about in rep because for True Node, it's already happened.
Right, right.
You know what I mean. So,
Mhm,
I've been like just observing it over the years just to see.
mhm.
You know what I mean? If it what's the difference? And I haven't quite observed it yet.
You can
You know
feel
what I
it.
mean?
But you're gonna
I could feel
feel
it
it because
coming, but
it's on the
you know what I
cusp.
mean?
Yeah,
Right.
it's on the hairline. Cusps are when you kind of, like I said, in the ambiguity, right?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of like, I feel it. I feel different, but
Right.
feeling different and a manifestation or an event taking place is what you were feeling. What's to come,
Right.
right? And so, Rahu and Ketu moving into new respective signs, right, until October of 2023 is going to be a big change for everybody. Been accustomed to Rahu being in a stabilized sign, and K2 being in a sign that, for all intents and purposes, can handle the explosiveness of Scorpio can handle the explosiveness of Ketu,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, but right, considering the way it's about to unfold, and we'll kind of compare it to the next kind of major transit we're going to talk about. It's going to contrast and pull away from some of the positive effects that these other placements can benefit. So Rahu in Aries inflates, right, and kind of exacerbates, right, and makes it gives an in kind of uh, unquenchable thirst for war, right, for combativeness, for individuality, right, for having an over being in overdrive, as they say, right, and K2 being in the sign of compromise, balance, equanimity, right? K2 is the planet that deals with really removing the head from something. So, you can't really gauge or guide yourself in regards to being able to be equitable or balanced in dealing with others. So, Rahu becomes right this kind of overwhelming condition where we're going to see a lot of frustration with a lot of different people, including in our own individual lives. So, noticing when people are a little more agitated, a little less compromising, um, adamant about having their way, right, doing things based on what the gut says, right, versus what their head says. And remember, Rahu clouds things, and Aries is what we consider the kind of sign that deals with the first sign, the head. So it can cloud things. It can make things seem uncertain. So we take action without considering the recompense. This is what you will notice as these nodes change into different signs, and this happens right around April 13th, right?
Right.
This is when the nodes will change. So you got to always consider what where those particular rulers are. In fact, we're going to have and I'm glad this is a conversation we're having on Cosmic Convos. We're going to have a Rahu-Ketu course coming up towards the end of this month and the beginning of May. So definitely chime in. If you're interested, let me know. We're definitely going to go through and exhaust, right? Uh, every single kind of nook and cranny, because Rahu and Ketu are mysterious and they're hard to understand. But back to the point I was making, then that you have to understand where the planets are that rule Rahu and Ketu when they enter their respective signs. So Mars, right, will be right in a very uncomfortable position, right? I know it's been an exaltation, right? But it's with also been with Saturn, which is, we've had even a planetary war here with Saturn here in the last couple of weeks. So it's very uncomfortable. It's not in the best position that it could be in. And
Right.
Venus, right, is in Aquarius, right? So it's almost like, the two are almost, because remember, we had a planetary war with Mars and Venus, earlier this year. And so that has obviously brought out a lot of war. A lot of unsettled energy has come to the surface. So you can see the Ukraine, different things like that have happened, and it's also going to bring out some other things later on in the year. I think we've discussed that a little bit, and like my man said here in the first couple of podcasts. But it's not over in regards to the warmongering. It's not over in regards to the combative energy on this planet, and Mars being in a compromised sign. Venus is not so much in a negative position because it's in Aquarius, right? And Aquarius is considered a friendly sign. So it's not necessarily in a detrimental position because for the Aquarius ascendant, it rules the fourth and the fifth house, which becomes a Yoga Karaka, which is a healthy positioning. In fact, it's the best planet for Aquarius. So, K on the K2 side, right, we might see, maybe not as much frustration on, relationships in regards to dealing with people on a one-to-one level, as far as business deals, keeping promises. It's going to be definitely some upheaval, but it may be a little bit more stabilized because Venus is in a position that is not so compromised. However, with Mars, right, Mars is definitely right in an unsavory position, right? And that's the problem, in that in those balancing acts between Rahu and Ketu, or Rahu is going to create more of the problem. It's going to be more of the insatiableness as far as getting your way, right? Aries can be, like the immature individual that wants to have it all, right? And willing to go to great lengths to get it. So this is where most of the problems would come in, is with Rahu or that particular Aryan disposition, right? This is really where you can see the most challenges coming from. So that's going to definitely be something to watch for. Take note. Be mindful of your environment with people, right? Be mindful of being in groups, because although Libra does deal with one to one in energy, right? It also deals in regards to marketplaces, right? It deals
Right.
regards to business and transactions. So you want to be careful in large areas where there may be malls, um, any type of you know what they call swap meets, or anything that where you go to make purchases in large numbers, right? Just be very careful, because those are areas that could definitely be up for surprises, right? Um, on the other side with Aries, keep a cool head, right? Stay focused. Give a little more than you would normally. It may be a stretch, it may be some frustration behind it, it may be that you just don't want to give in. But in the end, right, if you do, you'll probably get more out of the circumstance or situation than what you can with regards to being the opposite of being headstrong or domineering. So that's just the first piece of the puzzle, right? And I think that's one of the most important pieces, because the other ones lend us a little bit more self control, or a little bit more dignity in regards to their energies and forces. The next one that we look at is Jupiter, right? And long awaited Jupiter in its own sign, in Pisces, um, can be very fortuitous, definitely. It can be fortuitous. It can engender the desire to calm, to try to calm the waters, right? But again, you got to understand that the way these things enter, Pisces has a lot of interesting nakshatra, a few interesting nakshatras, and those nakshatras have what are called they're called asterisms. That's the other word, but aster, right, is kind of the connection to the word star. And so the stars in Pisces, right, within these nakshatras, is definitely, there are ones that can cause you to um, go deep, right, into manifesting that peace of mind. The thing about peace is that it's required only when there's not peace. Right? You got to understand the duality of life, and that when we talk about peace, right, what's the opposite of peace? Disturbances, right?
Right.
Um, we talk about things that are unsettled, things that are um, um, not in the line of being um, uh, where we can't recoup or recover ourselves. We feel lost, right? We feel at odds with life, right? Pisces is the last sign for a reason, right? And of course, we consider that in the grand sense of Kalapurush, or Kalapurusha, the cosmic man, or God personified as time. But it's the last sign, and you got to kind of consider the last sign is the last leg, the last effort, the last thing that you have to go through in order to realize yourself. So it's not all it's cracked up to be, in the sense of what we would think of as being this kind of grandiose, easygoing energy, right? It's two
Right.
fish going in opposite directions. One fish wants to go towards the heavens, the other one wants to be materialized towards the earth, right? So when you understand it from this perspective, right, this is when you get to understand that Pisces is it's a dual sign. It has two sides to it,
It's
right?
complicated.
It's complex, exactly. And this is what we are going to begin to see, that the complexities that we live in life are going to, be resolved, but they have to be brought up from the depth of the ocean. right? And so as Jupiter moves into this position, and it will move in shortly after, right? Rahu and Ketu enter on April the 14th. Think about that, how quick and intimate those changes are. When I say intimate, close in proximity, you have Rahu and Ketu changing into two signs at the same time. And then you have Jupiter changing into a sign literally, I would say considering almost at the same time. So this is
Right.
major shifts that the world is spinning and going through. So, we can, utilize Jupiter and Pisces by forgiving, having compassion, right? Healing those old wounds that we have just been harboring for years and holding on to things that really don't serve us any purpose, right? That's what moksha is all about. It's letting go, it's being freed from your bondages. And so this is what Jupiter is going to try to bring us until April of 2023. So, write out the list of people that you feel like have created infractions to you. Write out a list of people that have you considered wronged you. Consider who you might have wronged, right? And ask for their forgiveness, ask for their compassion, ask for their understanding, right? Be the bigger person. This is what Jupiter in Pisces is going to ask of us, but this is not an easy thing, right? This is not a cakewalk. It's not something that you just pick up and do. It's something you really have to take into your spirit, into your mind, and dig out those subconscious things that have become rooted in angst, frustration, and anxiety. So this is what Jupiter is going to test us on for the next year. And in fact, it's almost exactly a year that Jupiter will be in Pisces. It's nice to have it to where it's just fully smooth through. Like before we had Jupiter back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius. So, people were going back and forth between, losing hope and finding hope, right? Or trying to expand or grow from a social and a holistic perspective as far as society is concerned, right? And then going back into that Jupiter Capricornian type of frustration and despair. So this is a nice piece where Jupiter is going to move right through. There's no stops. Do a little dibble dabble back, but of course, that's expected from Jupiter. It does that pretty much once a year. But we're gonna go all the way through and end up with Jupiter in Aries, right? So, and that's of course as of April, I believe the 23rd of 2023, right? Might
Yeah.
be
24th, I think.
2023, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, um,
With
go ahead.
with Pisces, one thing I would like, what I would say, just from my personal experience, is like it's an energy where you pick up things intuitively, but also like kind of like from experience. It's like you got to jump in the water. You understand what I'm saying? To come out with what you come from. I mean, like contrast that with like Sag. Sag is kind of like theory, like almost like you know what I mean. Like you
Mm-hmm.
you try to grasp it from reasoning, putting things. You know what I mean. But with Pisces, it's like you in it, and what you come out with, you know, you come out with more clarity. You come out better, but you kind of have to go in it
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
get it. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like you're not gonna
It's a
get it
water
without
sign.
getting into the water.
Yeah, it's a water sign, which is emotional, right?
Right.
Which is, it's psychic to a degree. It's feeling based. It's, pulling things in, right? Think about it from the sense of when people wrong you, right? When people wrong you and when people have done you some disservice from your perspective, right? It's an old internal deep thing that you have to deal with. Pisces is a water sign that deals in oceanic and cosmic waters, right?
Right.
Right. Cancer is the shore, right? Cancer is the ocean in the sense of, the sea shelf, right? Where most of the kind of life that we deal with as far as the ocean is concerned is right there. But Pisces is those deep, dark waters, right? Where you have to go in and have a flashlight, right? Or
You can't
you can't see, so you have to
you
feel
can't
your
see the
way
other
through,
side.
right? You have to feel your way through, right? Things go bump in the night, right? You can't see in the dark. So it senses things, and its senses are heightened. Most Pisces ascendants are heightened, right? But remember, at the bottom of the ocean, at the bottom of the depth of your subconscious, are things that are old, things that have become rusted, decayed, atrophied, right? And so for you to bring those up, it becomes a cathartic process, right? This is what Pisces is all about. This is what you bring up from the depths to make sure that you are freed from it, the toxicities that have remained dormant in your spirit, right? So Jupiter's gonna bring all that up from a healing perspective. So this is a good thing, right? But just kind of contrast for just a split second, we talked about Rahu and Aries, right?
Right.
Well, Rahu in Aries will be the 12th from Jupiter in Pisces. This means that there was going to be a struggle, right? It's going to be a struggle to get to those depths by trying to still stay in the compensatory mode of self defense or of aggravation or of fighting or moving into new territories and lands with an aggression, right?
Right.
So this is, remember I told you this is going to be kind of a bitter, sweet, kind of positive, negative tug of war between that which is healing and that which is hurting.
Right.
And so this is what's going to happen on the planet. We're not going to have some overnight just kumbaya, right? Right. And
No.
Pisces is the sign of kumbaya. I mean, if you had to pick one, right? Um, but it's not going to be that way, right? It's going to be digging out,
If you had to pick one, that's funny.
right? Just for example, the nakshatras, right, of Pisces, right, but from 0 degrees to 3 degrees is Uttara Bhadrapada, which is
Right.
the serpent of the heavens, right? Right, the dragon. It's a dragon of the heavens, right?
Pulver,
I'm sorry,
Bhadrapada.
Purva Bhadrapada, excuse me. Purva Bhadrapada is 0 degrees, 3 degrees Pisces. That's the dragons of the heaven, the dragon of the heaven, right? That means that all those fiery energies that are above us, right? Fiery energies that are uh, um, kind of like lightning bolts to come down. Part of that is still in Pisces. Most of it is in Aquarius, but part of it's in Pisces. So it what definitely will bring is a lot of weather disturbances,
Mm-hmm.
right? Remember, water is the source for weather on this planet. The sun and the water that we have on this planet is the source for the weather that we have, right? Though Jupiter moving through that grows, expands, right, or exacerbates things, right? And so moving through that, weather disturbances, right? Especially during the early parts of, the spring and of course during spring, because that's when it's beginning, and also during the early parts of summer. And I would say even going further into maybe midsummer, we should see a lot of weather changes and weather patterns that are they're very disturbing,
Like I
right?
was just saying, I mean, we haven't. I mean, we're a couple days from the shift, but I mean, this whole week in Georgia been like, I
Yeah.
mean, like hard body raining. Like, I
Right.
mean, like I said, I couldn't even do the podcast on Wednesday because it was going so hard. It was
Hey,
like,
like I said, the next day I woke up and the lights were out from winds blowing like crazy, right? So we're gonna see a lot of these kind of unprecedented kind of weather patterns around the world, tsunamis, right? Typhoons. Um, I would even hurricane season is upon us on the northern hemisphere towards more September, August, September, October. So even during that time, you're still going to see a lot of different changes with regards to the weather patterns. So
right,
this is something that will happen with Jupiter moving into Pisces. Now, that tug of war we're talking about also can create the tumultuousness because the 12th house or sign from any planet creates a disturbance or a loss or an expenditure, right? So Rahu in Aries is fighting, right? It's the literally the um, unrelentless disposition to have to battle things. And what are you going to battle? right? Those storms, those kind of fallouts from different weather patterns. So again, this is when you begin to understand the depths of the science, you can see, right, how this is going to work, right? Um, it's going to manifest directly. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, that's backwards. My fault, y'all. Pisces is the 12th from Rahu. So Pisces is the one that is actually going to, it's still the same way, but Pisces, right, is going to be in the position where it's going to have to quell or calm those Rahu heated energies, right? And so those Rahu heated energies is going to be the frustration where we're going to see the angst of society. That's why I'm pretty sure that China is going to make its bid to go ahead and jump on into Taiwan this year. They're not going to wait any longer. They've waited long enough. They've sized up America's responses through the Russian activity. They know America's only going to do so much, and they already promised in the video we showed you earlier this season, Armageddon, Armageddon, Armageddon. So they've already made their statement to say, if we go do this, you better not jump. Because if you
And I
do,
think,
go ahead.
I mean, like with that, like that dynamic that you talked about, I think that that dynamic is what's going to keep America from jumping hard body in it. They're gonna be this. They're not gonna just turn a blind eye. But as far as like initiating World War III, that would keep America from making that step.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
They're locked in from both sides of the ocean,
Right.
right? They're smack dab in the middle. If you go to the east, right, you got Russian Ukrainian conflicts, which is not going to be just assuaged overnight. I mean, they're hitting actual civilian targets, and they don't care. They just like whatever, right? We're just hitting them just to hit them, just to destroy the infrastructure, so that by the time you are done rebuilding, right, we would already made our point, and your military will at least be, saturated with trying to stave off these little enclaves or these little bombings that we're dealing with. So, it's the long game, not the short game with Russia and Ukraine. So on the eastern coast, right, you have that, and on the west coast you have China dealing with Taiwan, right? And so
And North Korea.
North Korea has definitely been flaring,
I mean that they they're right there with them and
yeah,
China is they
that yeah,
they
sister,
they
brother,
homeboys.
so, yeah, right, they're partners. So, what I mean, again, right? This is, when America's going to have to make some hard decisions, right? This is going to be serious business because if you make a move left or right, just, it's bad news. So America's going to get a taste of some things that is, finally sit down and be quiet, right? But Jupiter will be moving over the fourth house of America. So, the people, the home front, would definitely be fighting for or pulling for non involvement, right? To be a little bit more passive, right? To have a little bit more decorum about how we stick our nose into everybody else's business. Um,
I
but
mean, that's probably the only thing that I think if we're gonna look at from a political perspective that like bipartisan wise, I think everybody is about on the same page,
yeah,
and
we don't want none
the
of that.
United States is not trying to get into the no
Yeah,
war
that.
situation.
We don't want none of that, right? And so, this is kind of what is on the horizon for things to come down. Now, interestingly enough, right, beside the weather patterns, besides the kind of swelling of the waters, right, New Orleans definitely should be careful, right,
Mm.
this year. Definitely. I mean, they say lightning doesn't strike in two places. Well, it does, right? Especially during times when the seas will kind of inflate or swell because Jupiter is the planet of expansion, and it does its job no matter what sign it's in, even if it's its own sign. And Pisces is those, like I said, those waters that, from a larger perspective. In fact, I mean, what we're going to see here, and we're going to talk about the next planet that's going to move. We're going to see over the next 14 years that the Earth is going to have to really, the planet itself is going to have to really, right, bog down on controlling, right, this global warming piece. we're already past a point of no return, but you don't want to add fuel to the fire. And so, not only America, but every country on this planet is going to have some very serious conversations about global warming. With that being said, we're going to have Neptune, the planet of Neptune, moving into Pisces as of the 17th of April, right? Big changes. This is global stuff, right? Neptune is the god of the seas, right?
And folks,
In the
this is Neptune right here. Right
right,
here, clicked up
right.
with Jupiter.
Poseidon in the Greek pantheon, Neptune in the Roman, right? Uh, um, persuasion, right? So, you know, Neptune has it's a pitchfork, right? And you ever watch, they kind of tell you a little bit through the movies because the subconscious mind kind of tells you things before they even know what they're only talking about. The spirit kind of gives messages out to humanity. You've seen Aquaman, right?
Or you ever seen Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief?
Yep, yep. You know, you got, I mean,
Percy's dad is Poseidon.
right. Um, you got these kind of in Aquaman. You know what happens is Atlantis, right, sends out a big wave throughout the whole planet, and it spits up all the garbage, right, onto the shores of the earth. It's kind of a subconscious message to say that when Neptune, right, or that planet with that trident is entering into its own sign, because from the Western perspective, Neptune owns or rules Pisces, so it
Right.
will be in with Jupiter, right, at the same time entering into the sun, entering at the same time, almost within 3 days. That's uncanny, right? So again, more disturbances with regards to weather. Not going to calm the seas. It's going to inflate them. It's going to swell them. It's going to produce more of what it naturally rules, right? And so you're going to see again potential oil spills, right? Potential oil spills, right? Why? Because Saturn will be, and we're going to talk about that next, entering in the sign behind Pisces, and Saturn is oil, isn't it?
Right.
So, from the mining aspect, from the drilling aspect, from the shipping aspect, something is potentially going to happen with another oil spill within this year. Right? So, just a lot of things that are going to definitely come out. The positive is that Neptune definitely will put us in a position, the planet in a position to deal with, again, those long term things that we've been avoiding. And we know global warming is real. I don't care what anybody talks about with regards to um, ice ages and things like that. Yeah, okay, right. We're not really due for an ice age for quite some time. But nonetheless, there is data, proof, scientific um,
You know,
means of measuring this. I mean, they talk about Florida, right? The edges of Florida by 2030. This is only what, 8 years from now? A majority of the coastline will become uninhabitable. Now, Neptune is going to move through this sign for the next 14 years. So, for the next 14 years, the topic, globally speaking, is going to be the oceans changing the surface and changing the actual kind of way we see our cities, our coastlines. I mean, New York is only a hop, skip, and a jump from that water level rising up, and you got problems. So this is something that we're going to really have to pay attention to as a planet, have very serious discussions about it, have some heart wrenching changes that we need to make as far as the planet is concerned. Because at this point, like I said, we're past the point of no return with regards to these changes that have been happening on the planet, but you don't want to add fuel to the fire, right?
it's interesting that you brought up the BP situation because a lot when that BP oil spill happened,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? Where Jupiter was.
Uh, Had it was in was in Aquarius.
It was in Pisces. It started off in
Oh,
Aquarius, and then
BT, you're right. You're
it went, it
absolutely
went,
right.
it
You're
went into
absolutely right.
Pisces a few days after it
You're
started.
absolutely right. That was in 2010, wasn't it?
Right. Yep.
Yep. I'm telling you, right? Right. Pay attention, right? This stuff is a
Saturn
beautiful.
wasn't in Aquarius. It was, I think it was in
No,
Virgo,
it
but
was in
it was in
Virgo, but
Virgo.
guess what? That's an
That's that's
opposition,
that's not, yeah.
right? And that's not all that great of a predicament to be in, right?
Right.
So, those are things that you got to really put into framework. On a personal level, you know, Neptune is. We talked about Neptune and Aquarius a lot last. We gave a couple of examples of what that is because of this kind of um, Me Too movement, right? But you know what the new Me Too is going to be? The planet is going to be Me Too. I'm here too, right? Yeah, I'm feeling it. Me too, right?
Right.
It's going to be a Me
Yeah.
Too of the planet, right? Right. The Earth matters, right? Forget
All
Black
Earth
lives,
matters.
right? White lives, Asian lives. It's going to be the Earth matters,
Matters.
right? That's going to be the slogan for the next 14 years, right? Because Neptune is that
Tim.
planet,
Tim.
right?
Yeah, that's a whole nother pun, but Tim.
Right. It's going to be the Earth matters, not Black lives. The Earth matters, right? Who cares
Yeah.
about Black lives if the Earth is in peril, right? Who cares
Right.
about any life? Because the Earth is what gives us life. So we're going to have a lot of environmental things that are going to go on with the planet. The planet's going to come into a consciousness that will really talk about literally what we need to do as a whole to get rid of, the consensus of what borders bring and melt into something that we can deal with this thing from a holistic perspective. That's what Neptune and Pisces is going to do, and Jupiter is going to help usher this in with nice little things that remind us that yeah, you need to be about that for the next 14 years, right? Um, and again, this is with Rahu in Aries, right? It is the second sign from Pisces. And forgive my mistake earlier, but the second sign is what we call a Makara or a death house, the second and the seventh house. Peace and Wani. So, that second house away, right, is what nourishes, is what sustains. And Rahu is what's sustaining. Rahu inflates, Rahu swells, Rahu exacerbates, right? Rahu confuses. Rahu is that going off and being in a state of mind where you don't have a sense of reality, right? It's drugs,
Price.
it's
See
illusion.
the environmental activists get very active, very
They're going to have
aggressive.
to,
Right.
right? They're going to have to fight tooth and nail if they're wise, right? But remember, we're going to have other things that are going on where people are going to be more worried about their individuality.
Right.
So this is the struggle between universality and what? Individuality,
Individuality.
right? When you have a 212, 212 is when the two signs are adjacent. That is what we consider an insecure or suspicious placement. You're looking behind your shoulder, and the person that's behind you is looking at you like you're just a consuming head, right? So
Right.
this is where this 212, right, this kind of back and forth is going to happen. And we may see some difference when Jupiter moves into Aries, because Jupiter will calm, Jupiter is the only planet that can calm Aries down. See, this is how you know what's going to happen, because Jupiter is in a sign prior to Aries.
Mm-hmm.
So it can calm Aries. It's the only one that can calm that Aries down. The liver is the only one that can detox your body. Kidneys to some degree, but in a small, minute way. Jupiter is the true detoxer. Of course, your skin does as well, but without Jupiter, right, you're dead, right? So this is how you begin to understand it from a anatomical perspective, in the sense that we're looking at the cosmic man or Kala Purush, right? The cosmic man has these things going on inside of it, So you can see the toxicity that's brewing, but at the same time, the potential attempt to remove it, but through struggle and through strife. And so, like I said, Neptune, as it's entering in and moves through Pisces, the Earth is going to have to address some very serious, heartfelt things in order to deal with this. And the good news is that Jupiter will return back to Pisces with Neptune in it, but at a much later degree when Neptune is beginning to enter into the new sign of Aries. And that's in the next 12 years. So we'll have another visit of Jupiter in Pisces again. And by that time, things come what? Full circle.
Circle. Yeah.
We'll be at that point at the precipice of really talking about and implementing solar panels, energy conservation, um, recycling as a mainstay of life, um, um, changing the fuels of the planet so that we can become more energy efficient, getting rid of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels won't phase out overnight. It's going to take at least another 50 years for fossil fuels to be a thing of the past, right?
Well, yeah, from just a day to day type of
On a
thing,
day
but
to
for
day,
like
but it's a
from
gradual
vehicles, for
right.
vehicles, it'll be gone by then. I mean, because
I'm
every manufacturer has
let me say this.
started making a
I
version
think
of their
they will be as far as cars are concerned,
right. That's what. Yeah.
but you have airplanes, right?
Oh, that's that. They are. It's there. They got you
They're
got
working
electric
on it,
boat.
right? But
There's an electric boat, electric yacht.
the
That's already
the
that's
car will
out.
be the first to go, right? As far as the fossil fuels are concerned,
Your
all the
fossil
others,
fuel car would be your old school.
right,
Everybody would be
right,
you know what I mean. But as far
right.
as all most of the new cars will
Or
be
become more electric anyway. Yeah, that they're
yeah
phasing it in now, but you still have another, because Neptune's got to move into Aries, right? It's got to move into Taurus, right? I think when Neptune is in Taurus is when we will really see, right?
like
That
it
is
doesn't like it's like it doesn't exist. Like
right,
your car takes gas.
right. You'd be looking at somebody like,
We
really?
gotta find you a gas
Yeah.
station.
It'll be like an antique,
I
you
think
know,
there's one
collector's items,
like 15 miles away.
right? It'd
You
be
know,
collector's items. You'd be a collector,
right,
right?
right.
you so we'll see this as a progression, right? But I mean the totality of because warplanes, right, military still, rockets, you know what I'm saying, things like that will still, because we're still trying to figure out how to get from rocket fuel to moving into a direction for space travel where we leave the atmosphere without all of the kind of
It'll be
fumes
hydrogen.
and byproducts, right?
It'll be
So
hydrogen.
yeah, we're moving to that, but those will
Yeah.
be the last legs of those changes that will happen, and they will, because they are talking about how they have planes that can transcend and move directly into space, from the Earth's atmosphere, which is there, but that's far. It's so far off to be a mainstream, right? That's what I mean. Is that in those last years, those will be the things that will be the last final legs of fossil fuels being used in mass. But back to Neptune, right? Neptune is going to teach us some very serious, heartfelt lessons about how to care for each other, globally speaking, how to really take apart and understand the problems that we presented ourselves with being indolent, with being lazy, with being careless, with being nonchalant about how we affect each other on a global scale, right? This is what Neptune is going to teach us, right? Um, and like I said, the earth matters, right? Will be the slogan that we will be coming up with. So it's going to be an interesting next 14 years. Buckle up, right? Because, like I said, there's going to be some major conversations and major implementations of things to kind of offset and not add more fuel to the fire, right? Um, Now, directly after that, right, we have Saturn, not directly, but the Saturn changes from Capricorn into Aquarius as of April the 28th. Another major change, right? Big changes coming. Right before that, we have Venus moving into Pisces as of April 20. I want to say no. April 23rd, 24th, moves in, right? So all of these things are domino effects, one right after the other.
It's the same
Right?
day, April 28th, the
That's
same
and
day.
so I was gonna say same day, right?
Yep.
So interesting, right? That these things are changing all at once within the next 30 days, right? We're having all of these changes happen at once, right? Unprecedented stuff, right? We're living in majorly changing times. So with that being said, right, when you have um, when you have Venus entering into the sign of its exaltation, most of us will have some reprieve as far as relationships. There'll be some forgiveness. There'll be some letting of the hair down. Like I said, compassion will be the rule of the day. Compassion should be, and unconditional love should be the slogan, right, for this whole year. Um, and you consider the war in Ukraine as a primary symbol or message that compassion and forgiveness is tantamount to being important. Because I'm not saying I don't have a dog in either race. I mean, in fact, my people, our people, black people, are being put in a very unfortunate circumstance because they're not even allowed to leave. They're treated as, again, second class, third class citizens, despite, right, the people of that land being treated as such, right? So it's interesting that you have people that are under duress and being bombarded, and they still at the same time have the audacity to treat people of color with some disdain or some insult. So it's a bitter kind of sweet thing when you look at it. I mean, I have to be neutral because the loss of life is the loss of life, but at the same time I also have to consider the plight and issues of my own personal people in that particular part of the world. So having a dog in the race, again, I'm not going to be a Malcolm X type character to say the chickens come home to roost, but you get out what you get back what you put out. So
I mean, they're straddling the fence anyway. I mean, like, as a people, it's kind of like, yeah, they're, what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that I'm not, alluding to any kind of,
no, no.
justification, but I mean, as far as them as a people, it's, they have to have a little more insight in regards to like who they really are and who they should slash could be aligned with.
Mm-hmm.
um what I mean, they have to work. I mean, that's being worked out right there, because if they had a little bit more foresight and being able to see, or it could be a lot of things. I mean, when you start getting into global politics and foreign relations and different things, there's a lot of different things that take place that we don't necessarily know about. But
Sure,
I
sure.
mean, anybody can look at Ukraine and Russia and like, what do you think you're gonna do, Ukraine? Right? You think you're gonna be Britain? No.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? I
Right.
mean, I hear you, but you're Russian, okay? All right, and that, to think anything else other than that, you're severely fooling yourself or whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. And um it's just interesting how these things are playing out. But nonetheless, Venus will be in a sign of exaltation. It will be with Jupiter,
Hmm.
right? It is going to conjoin Jupiter right around, let's see, I want to say, what, May 1st? May 1st, right? Um, April 29th, 30th, right? Let's see. Yeah, right around, no, actually, it'll be May, right? It'll be no, April 30th, excuse me. Interesting. April 30th is another day we're going to talk about here coming up here. This whole change of things, a change of events, right? So, you know, um, when Jupiter and Venus are conjoined, there's a couple of conjectures with how it plays out. There are there's two benefics, right? Jupiter being the great benefic, Venus also being a benefic. And you can definitely have the feeling of optimism, right, in regards to relationships and conjugal interactions. But they all are also, they're both gurus in the sense of Sanatana Dharma, or what we call Vedic astrology. They're both gurus. And so they have a different perspective on how to teach their students and whom they guide, right? Jupiter is the instructor to the devas, right? Or what we call the forces of light. I put that within parentheses, right?
Right.
And Shukra, right, is the teacher of the asuras, right, or the daityas, which are the forces of darkness, right? Um, Interesting enough, the devas had a taste of the nectar of immortality, right? But Venus was given the power to raise the dead from life. So there's a stalemate there, right? Now, the devas, she can resurrect the devas back from the dead, right? According to the story. So, and the story gets deep. Jupiter, Venus, or Shukra was considered a more powerful student than Jupiter. You would think Jupiter would be the one, right? But actually, Venus is considered the more apropos student. But Venus got a little jealous because of the way, because the instructor for Venus and Jupiter was Jupiter's father, and so the story just gets a little into detail about why Venus felt so disrespected, despite all of his hard work and his dedication to knowledge. Why Jupiter was always a guru, right, or in Gears was always treated a little better, right? So he went and found another guru, right? But nonetheless, the story goes that they become, vital enemies. And Jupiter sent his son, Guru sent his son to find out, or Brihaspati, same, all the same energy, right? Brihaspati
Mm-hmm.
sent his son, right, to go find the secret of resurrecting the dead, of immortality, right? And it gets into some really interesting points, but nonetheless, right, um, Venus was tricked because Venus's daughter was dating Brihaspati's son, right? And Brihaspati's son tricked Venus's daughter in order to give up the secret, and ended up that um, Venus ended up consuming or eating, right. I can't remember his name, Brihaspati's son, and by chance got secret or wind of the mantra, right, to create life from death. But because of the betrayal, and because Venus's daughter proposed to Brihaspati's son, he said, "Nah, I'm good. We just friends. I don't really dig you like that." She made him forget the power. She made him forget the mantra, right? So just the story elucidates that they have a long-standing kind of frustration with each other from the Vedic perspective, but they are still both benefics. And Venus is exalted in its enemy sign for the most part. So you're gonna have a lot of um, processes to talk about letting old habits go, letting people go, letting false ideologies go, letting things matriculate to the point where you bring out um, some things that maybe not secret, but things that you wouldn't normally tell someone. You do tell them, and then now you have to move on to a different page. A lot of endings, right? With things will be ending. Um, you know, things will come to a halt, or at least move in a different direction with Venus and Jupiter moving into these positions. So again, right, and of course Neptune is going to be there too, right? But Neptune again affects things on a more global or massive level. So a lot of endings, a lot of changes, a lot of things that will be recapitulated and restructured because of Venus and Jupiter kind of hanging out together and moving through this respective sign.
Indeed.
Um, Saturn moves into Aquarius, right, as of the 28th. So again, Saturn moving into Aquarius is going to be, it's not going to be in its internalized sign. It's going to be in, Saturn is going to be in its masculine or externalized sign, day sign. And so that's going to really talk about paying your dues consciously versus paying your dues subconsciously, or by default, right? Saturn in its own sign will give us an awareness of some projects that we may be trying to finish or bring to a close, or at least projects that we want to like to bring to some maturity. Um, it's going to be where you are having access. Now, again, Saturn is only going to be in Aquarius up to 1 degree. That's very
Yeah.
short stint, right? It's going to go retrograde as of June 4th. And then as of July, it's going to move backwards and it's going to go all the way back into
Cap.
Capricorn. It'll go back to Capricorn all the way back to 24 degrees. And then as of October, it'll begin to move forward and go right in from, excuse me, at 24 degrees quickly into Aquarius as of January of 2023.
Right.
So
Saturn, man. Saturn's been
Saturn's going to do some
Capricorn.
interesting stuff. But
It's
here's
been
the thing:
Capricorn for so long.
it has been, right?
Jeez.
It's going to go back in to get. You said, "Oh, you thought you was done, right?"
No, come back.
No, no, you're not done, right? There's some internal work you got to build. There's some
Right.
structures you got to finalize, right? If you look at it from a perspective of building, right?
Right.
Saturn is like building the foundation in Capricorn. It's the underworkings of things that no one sees. And Saturn in Aquarius is like putting on the drywall,
The
putting in the
aesthetics.
electricity,
Yeah,
right?
the,
Right. Putting the roof on, finalizing your projects, right? A good
right.
way to look at it. But if you didn't pay your dues when Saturn, and you didn't build your foundation properly when Saturn's in Capricorn, right? When you get to laying the drywall, right, you might fall into a wall, right, or push through it, and your foundation's weak, right? So some of those projects that you were building or constructing may definitely falter if you don't at least use the time that Saturn goes back into Capricorn wisely and finish, dot those I's and cross those T's, and really make sure that you are structurally sound, right? Um, Not to mention, right, that on the 30th, and just aside from Saturn moving into Aquarius, we have the conjunction of Venus and Jupiter. At the same time, we have a solar eclipse.
Hmm.
Like I said, folks, this is a heck of a month to really understand all of these crazy, intense changes that we're having. And this eclipse is going to happen at 16 degrees Aries. Aries, right? Right. Considering, I mean, this is like putting the cherry on top of the month, right? So, eclipses in Aries, again, eclipses don't mean you're going to see the thing manifest that day. But remember, right? Rahu is going to be in Aquarius, be in Aries for until October of next year. So
Right.
now these triggers that have been set up while this eclipse happens, it's going to be big things transpire. And I'm telling you, this is what I'm talking about with regards to China. This is what I mean by them, that tripwire being set up so that they finally feel froggy enough to leap, right? Rahu is the leap forward of our lives. It's literally, it's leapfrog. You ever play the game Leapfrog? I don't know if you might be Frogger. Remember, I don't know,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
might be.
yeah, yeah,
Remember
yeah, yeah.
Frogger, and you had to jump, right,
Yeah.
to different things and not to fall in the water, right?
Atari.
Atari, yeah, back in the day, right, right. That's kind of like what Rahu does. It's Frogger. It's like
Right.
leaping, making these kind of vast jumps over stages and processes, right? And
Hmm.
uh, Capricorn ruled China is gonna feel froggy, right? So this Aries eclipse is gonna set the tripwire, right? So that when these kind of things come about in the summertime, right, you're gonna see something trigger, right? That trigger is gonna, and America's gonna have to sit back and mind their own business to some degree. America never will mind its own business completely, because it is Sagittarius, and the Sagittarius is a judge. It judges the world. It puts everybody under its own judgment. So that's just going to happen. But nonetheless, at least to some degree, we won't be just fall out all war, go run to Taiwan and just, no, if they're wise, and I believe that America will have some, like we talked about, bipartisan understanding that that's just not a good move, right? We're going to have to play it from a different perspective. So, that eclipse on the 30th is going to be interestingly played out throughout the year. Um, Not only that, the world leaders and people that are in power, Putin has a Libra ascendant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And K2 is going to move right over that Libra ascendant. So at some point, he just might lose it. He might lose it. He might say to hell with it all, right? Let's just dig in, compromise, schmompromise, right? Let's go ahead and push in and just line up the troops and sit up in Kiev. It's possible, right? And with K2, it's like a, a it's like nitroglycerin, right? Mars is like dynamite. You got a fuse and you can light it and run, right? K2 is like nitroglycerin. You got to be real careful, right, of transporting it. And any slight disturbance or move, boom, right? So as a world leader, definitely watch for Putin and that K2 moving into his ascendant. That's definitely going and can exacerbate, things. I mean, remember, you know, Libra is a powerful entity as far as leadership is concerned. Mahatma Gandhi was, I don't agree with his philosophy. Don't start taking that route, but he's a
Right.
world leader, right? Adolf Hitler, right?
Mm-hmm.
World leader, right? Neither which of those individuals do I aspire to emulate in any degree, but they're Libra ascendants, right? So they have a sway over the masses you can't believe, right? They can control the masses with ease because of their smooth operator delivery. And Putin is no exception to the rule, right?
Right.
He's been in power for the last 22 years. It's about time. But he's going to go out with a what?
Bang.
Yeah. Right. So, this is the things to kind of look for. We are in a call Sarpa yoga, which is, all of these planets. Of course, the moon is what breaks it every 14 days. It breaks it, and then of course every other 14 days is within the belly. But the moon is such a fast moving planet. You still consider we're in a call Sarpa yoga. So that being said, we're gonna break that call Sarpa yoga um, this month as well. The planet that will break it is the planet that deals in communication, that deals in self expression, that deals in logic, reasoning, and that is the planet of Mercury. It's going to break this called Sarpa Yoga. And interestingly enough, it will break it right around, I'm going to say, April the 24th, right? In fact, just to double check and see, right? Yeah, April 24th is when it breaks it, right?
Right.
So, um, we'll find ourselves being a little bit more reasonable, even in the sense of all these dramatic changes happening. Communications will open up. We won't be so bottled up in the sense of what we want to say, how we want to say it, and where we want to say it. Being the planet that deals in, rationality, right? It'll be a little bit more, it'll be a lot easier to, come across, equanimity of the mind, right? Your thinking process will be a lot less pent up or a lot less stifled with regards to your emotions. So, this is all of the things that we're going to transpire with and have happen in the month of April, right? Buckle up, right? Watch out and see how it pans out, right? Um, Again, the real theme of the year is just, you know, let things go, right? It's not that serious for us to be in a position of frustration where now we're putting ourselves in worse predicaments than when we can just go ahead and say, it's bigger than us, right? It's bigger than me. It's bigger than you. How do we create win-win scenarios? How do we level the playing field? How do we put ourselves into a position of empowerment from a dualistic perspective, right? That's the motto of the year. And I unction all of you to apply it in every facet of life, whether it be from family, whether it be from business, whether it be from relationships, whether it be from your neighbors, whatever, right? Look towards having some degree of altruism, right? And looking at things from the bigger perspective, because ultimately, right, you're literally, your heart is judged on a scale not by what you think, but how you act, and that action needs to bring forth, right, some healing. So, with that being said, right, we've covered pretty much every transit movement throughout this month, and kind of looked at them from a long-term perspective. Definitely, leave some comments. Let us know what you see. Let us know, how you might be perceiving some of these things as well, because we're always open for insights and communication.
Indeed. Indeed. So, without further ado, I want to thank you all for tuning in. This was episode 11 of season 5, episode 111 overall. Definitely play this one back. Listen to the first episode we did. This will fine tune that first episode that we did for 2022. And, like I said, a whole other slew of mundane astrology prediction episodes that we have, because it all feeds and ties in together or whatnot. Rob, before we get out of here, you got any announcements, anything like that you want to, get to the people?
Oh, just if you have a religious practice, whether it be Islam, Judaism, Christianity, spiritual practice, whether it be the Kemetic traditions, um, Hebrew Israelite, I don't care what it is. Look in your teachings and see if you can find the means and the understanding for finding and implementing, right, forgiveness, right? Really search that out and see the benefit that it has in your lives and the lives of others. With that, right, I'm good.
Indeed, indeed. So, we'll be back next week with another great episode. And you guys be safe out there, and we're out. Peace.
Peace.